Welcome. I am Amanda Rangel, and I'm with the team at IntraAwareness. We actually have a booth here at the Expo this weekend, booth 134 and 135. And what we are going to do here today is talk a bit about the difference between thoughts and feelings. And we're going to actually look at them individually. We're going to see how they work together. And then we're going to take them gently back apart again so that you guys can have a technique and a strategy when you go home to be able to see the difference. And what that does actually is the foundation to tapping into your intuition. So, yesterday we're at the expo here and I was on lunch and there were two lovely ladies who may or may not be in this room right now that asked me if I had actually gone to see any of the psychics that are here at the expo. Psychics are mediums. And my answer was that I had not. And the reason being is that when I'm tapping into my feelings and my emotions, I'm able to tap into my intuition. There's really nothing that any outside source can tell me that I don't get the answers for automatically myself. How many of you guys have had that experience before? Yeah? How many of you would like to have that experience? Okay, very cool. Awesome. So, the reason that this is super important, and I found a lot of value of it in my life, is that I take it in my own personal life. It's actually the way that I tapped into and found my spouse. And he just kind of showed up in the moment that I needed him most and wanted him most. Not what I thought that he was going to show up as, but the way that the universe actually wanted him to show up for me. In my professional life, tapping into intuition is what has allowed me to have a dream of actually working at the same company as my uncle, and from a really little girl, and follow the breadcrumbs, follow the path that the universe had in store for me in order to get to that goal. And so I probably started having that dream or that desire, that want, because he's a really cool guy, when I was like 8 or 9. When I started to realize, wait, people do things for money, how does this earth really work? And so I had that dream when I was about 8 or so, and when I was in my early 30s, I was actually sitting at my desk on the same floor, very close near to the office actually that my uncle works at, and nobody else was there. I was there late at night working on something, and I looked around and I realized that little girl has actually received her dream. She's received exactly what she wants, and nobody else was in the office. And so I turned the Sia song up really loud, and I just celebrated with that little 8-year-old girl. And I was like, you did it. We did it. We followed the breadcrumbs. We followed our intuition. We've made it. But then I was like, now what? And it was tapping into intuition. It was tapping into that knowing that actually set me on this other path, which kind of leads me here with you guys today. So everything that I'm going to share with you over the next 30, 40 minutes or so are things, it's like an equation, like a cheat code basically, to tap into the thing that is going to give you the answers to all of the questions that the mind brings. Now I know the title of this seminar said thoughts versus feelings, but it's not really versus. They work together. We need the mind. We need thoughts as a human. It's a very, very intelligent thing to do actually, to tap in and see what they are. How do they work? And the feelings are going to be more of the feminine side. So the thoughts are going to be like the masculine side. We need that in our lives. We need the doing, we need the action. The feelings are going to be more of the feminine side, which is the intuition, which is the knowing, which is those aha moments when things fall into place. Maybe you've taken action, and now that action has led to things just to be able to fall into place for you. So that's kind of an overview of what we're going to do. I'm going to go into two actually separate techniques that I'm going to share, two different little strategies and things. If you have a pen and paper that you want to jot down some notes, definitely do that. At the end, if there's time, we will do some maybe even some channeling some women were kind of asking for. But I'm going to really lead it all back to you, to your own heart center, because that's where the answers are really, really actually waiting to come from. So, I'm going to start out talking about this chart that I whipped together really quickly before you got here. And this is, can everybody see this okay? Pretty good? Okay, if not, just make little adjustments. And so this is basically 2 of the 4 worlds that we at IntraAwareness talk about. So there's 4 separate worlds that all human beings are a part of, just for being in your body and being here, that are individual worlds, but they cannot be separated. One of the worlds is the universal world of wealth. It's how the universe communicates with you. The way that is going to work is through flowing in life or no flowing in life. But that's for a different talk. But I want you to have that first one that we talk about. The second one is going to be the body. The physical body will communicate in the physical world with your senses, which you see, hear, smell, taste, touch. All of that is going to be the way that the second world communicates with you. The third world, and these last 2 are the ones we're going to get into at this meeting here today. The third world is going to be the psychological world. The psychological world is one that has the thoughts. And so that's the topic that we're talking about today. And so we're going to dig into that even deeper and break it down. And then the 4th world we have is the spiritual world. The spiritual world is where you're going to get your feelings and emotions. So if you know somebody that's shut down emotionally, shut down with their feelings, like they just won't feel it, they keep pushing it down, they're actually shutting down a whole world of spiritual knowledge that's actually trying to talk with them and communicate with them the answers that they're looking for in life. So it's super, super valuable to have not only an idea of the big picture of the 4 different worlds, but then also to go into the details of it, because as you take this home and as you practice this and start to see, oh, wait a minute, aha, that's a communication, that's trying to actually tell me something, you can tap into it and do one of the techniques that we're talking about to get even more information about what the universe is really trying to tell you, to guide you to those places in your personal life, in your professional life, that you're really wanting to go. Okay, so let's start out now with the mind, because the mind really loves to hear about itself. So the mind is, the world that it comes in is the psychological world. So the psychological world is going to come, and the package is going to come in is the mind. And the way that it communicates, the language that it speaks, is through internal representations. So what an internal representation is it's something that you think of inside, but then you get a picture or a movie. The other ways that it comes, other than pictures and movies, would be just an image that pops up. And the interesting thing is that it can pop up as something that feels like it's inside your head, like you're thinking of it, and then a picture will pop up inside. But it can actually be a picture that pops up almost outside of you. So you could be like, when I think about my car, like if you think about your car right now, is the picture that comes up of your car inside your head, or is it kind of outside of you? Do you see it like in the parking lot, the last place that you saw it? Do you see it in the summer? Do you see it in the winter? Do you see it when you first bought it? Or maybe the website that came up when you first realized that that was going to be your car? So that's an image that can be either kind of inside or outside. And just start to notice that and play around with that a little bit. The internal representations might have sounds. It's going to be the thoughts, part of what we're talking about today. And it's going to be in any language. So any language that is spoken is actually happening through the psychological world, and it's coming through the package of the mind. That's a gift from the mind, actually, to be able to speak. Just a little side note. If somebody's kundalini, so kundalini is an energy that runs through the body. Have you guys heard of that a little bit? Maybe not at all. So kundalini is an energy that runs through the body, and in the spiritual world, as somebody gets more and more connected, there's actually yoga practices to get the kundalini to go high, because that's a place of, can be a place where it feels very blissful, it feels very beautiful, a lot of information and insights happen there. So that's kind of a goal that some people might have, to try to get to this high kundalini place. Well, when actually somebody is in a place truly in one of those places, the mind doesn't actually work, and language doesn't work. There's just pure bliss. And I know this because this has happened to my husband quite a few times, actually, during our travels back and forth from India. And he gets to this place where it's just super euphoric, and like words can't come out. It's just laughter. So that's kind of a neat little side note. not that it happens to everybody. It has to be something that's kind of set as an intention, and there's karma, there's other things that go into that, but just a little side note. So the mind is the gatekeeper. And language is a gift from it, thoughts are a gift from it, pictures and images, memories that pop back in where you can relive the most beautiful vacation. Have you guys been on vacation, or your happiest moment that you've had in your life? The moment that you met your spouse, your wedding day, maybe that you had a pet and the first time that you picked up your new pet. That's a gift actually from the mind to recall and give you that image and give you those memories and those feelings. No, not those feelings, but those images. Does that make sense? If you have any questions about that, go ahead and jot them down. And at the very end, we can either answer them then, or we can also, you can come visit me at the booth today, and then we can talk about it there as well. So, that's the mind. It's a very cool thing. It is not a versus. It's not a one against the other. They work together. So, now going into the spiritual world, which is that fourth world that we talked about. So there's the four worlds that we talk about in IntraAwareness. There's the universal or the wealth. There's the physical world where the body is the package. Then there's the psychological world. And now we're going to go ahead and talk about the spiritual world. So the spiritual world is absolutely beautiful, as far as I'm concerned and in my experience. The package that it comes in is your heart center. It's not a physical package. It's an energetic package, actually, and it's located right here. It's the heart center. It is what allows information from your intuition to flow through. The technique that we're going to go through at the end is going to be a little guided meditation, but also it's going to be technical. So I'm going to tell you about what it is, and then we're going to go through an experience of it as well. And it's going to help you to connect and open up this heart center. So the package is the heart center, and the language that it speaks is feelings. Are there ever moments that you guys have where you feel so happy, it just feels like your heart is going to explode? Where it's just, whoa, this is so cool, I just got amazing news, this feels really, really good. Yeah, okay, cool. There are also, in feelings, there's both ends of the spectrum. So there are also moments where there are feelings where it's like, ooh, ouch, that really hurt. You can feel like a burning happening, actually. And it usually happens in the heart center. The reason that is because it's part of the spiritual world that you're experiencing. It's the feeling that you're experiencing. It's the communication saying, yeah, this doesn't work for me. This doesn't work for you. Now there are different technical little tweaks, but for our purpose here today, we're talking about more the feelings and how they relate to that. Some of the burning that can happen in the heart center can sometimes be karma burning off. It can sometimes be a wake up. It can sometimes be, there are a lot of different reasons and that this can happen, but for our purposes today, we're just talking in general about feelings as far as somebody comes by and says something to you and, ooh, that doesn't feel good, or oh, that feels great. Just kind of notice how the feelings kind of start here. They can spread to the rest of your body because it's all connected, but that's that other world that we talked about. But we're really focusing on the heart center for here today. So the language of the heart center in the spiritual world is going to be through feelings. And the feelings will come up through emotions, they'll come up through intuition, they'll come up through a quiet little voice, which can sometimes be really loud because it wants your attention. So it can be really quiet and subtle because that's the nature of it, is to really be more offering. It will offer you advice, but you have to be the one to be awake enough to take it. But sometimes it'll be loud because it knows that you really want this answer, and it's trying in every single way to get that answer to you. So quiet little voice, or maybe kind of a louder voice. And then the other thing is through insights. So the heart center is where the insights will come from. I'm going to actually skip back here to the mind, because this visualizations that's kind of trying to creep into the heart center area, that's one that I didn't mention. And visualizations will be things that you can visualize, kind of like what we talked about as far as like your car or vacation. One difference, and I love how this one actually started to creep into the heart center, because the mind will try to go into the heart center area, but it has no business there. It has no access there. The heart center in the spiritual world can give information to the psychological world and the mind, but this has no access to this. And again, that technique that we're going to do in just a little bit is going to explain even more about that. So, one really cool thing about visualizations, trying to creep over into and touch insides, is that a lot of times if somebody's in their head, in their mind, in their thoughts, they will think that they are feeling something. I don't know how many times I've asked clients, so how do you feel about that? And they say, well, I think that it means that, da 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 da. I know right away they're not in their heart center when they're giving that answer, they're in their mind, because they're telling me that they're thinking. Even though I asked what they're feeling, they're telling me what they're thinking. And so that's just a really neat way to kind of see where somebody's at actually when they're even talking to you. So you can just take even this information and go back to your job, go back to your work, and when you notice if you ask somebody, well, how do you feel about that? Maybe they're sharing a story with you, maybe you're trying to help and guide them. Say, how do you feel about that? With real curiosity from your heart center, and if they answer back, well, I feel, and then a lot of fast words come after that, you can guarantee that they're in their mind, they're in the psychological world, and they're just regurgitating information, really. They're not going deeper into the actual root of what's happening, which is where the answers are going to be. So, with visualizations and insights, kind of going back into here with these two creeping together, visualizations, you'll know that you're receiving a visualization, or you're creating a visual, the mind is creating a visualization, if you can change something about it. So if you think about your car, or the vehicle that you came in here today, try and change the color of it to bright orange, or maybe even bright pink, the color of my blazer. When you're able to do that, you can kind of see it a little bit different, and that's the mind able to change what we call a step modality, or a little fine detail of your car. So if you can change it, you can know that it's a visualization and it's coming from the mind. And that's totally cool. That's a really cool way to know if what you're receiving is an insight from the spiritual world or a visualization from the mind, from the psychological world. Now, an insight, when you receive an insight, you will not be able to change anything about it. You can try, but the way that it is given to you is because your heart center is open. And it comes through so pure that you won't actually be able to change it. And quite frankly, if you're in your heart center, you won't even want to. Because it will just feel like this amazing deep breath. It'll just be a knowing that's happening. Now the mind might try and jump in and say, no, I think I can change it. I'm gonna try and change it. Here we go, let's try and change this. And then just know that you've popped out of your heart center and gone more into the psychological world and more into the mind. And that's totally okay. Because the technique that we're gonna do is gonna be able to help you to get back to that space. It's the mind's job to actually come up with questions. So just know that anytime that there's a question happening, especially like a persistent question, that's coming from the mind. It just purely is. And the interesting thing to know about the mind is that it doesn't care about the answer. Because as soon as you think that you have an answer, or maybe a rationalization, or a really good logical reason why this is this because this, that feeling, even the way that I said that, is kind of how the mind feels. It's very masculine. It wants to figure things out and have it in place, but it actually doesn't care, because as soon as you have that fixed or done, or an answer for that, it'll go right to the next question. It'll start questioning the logic that it just gave you. So that's how you know that you're in the psychological world, you're in the mind. Both of these two worlds, by the way, are non-physical, which is one reason why a lot of people have a lot of questions about it. There's not a lot of understanding about it. not something that's taught in school necessarily. We are 100% being, right? And if we break that down into the 4 worlds, only one of those worlds is physical, which is the physical body. That means that 75% of who and what we actually are in these bodies is invisible. So the universe that we're connected to is one of those worlds. The psychological world is one of those worlds. The spiritual world is one of those worlds. And they're non-physical, which can cause a lot of confusion when the education system, when the environment, when the social general standards of learning are all about what you can see, what you can hear, what you can taste, what you can touch. It's very, very rarely about what you feel. There are some schools now, there are some places that now that are starting to teach younger generations that, which is really amazing because that's really what's needed, is more balance. So, insights cannot be changed, they don't need to be changed. If a part of somebody is trying to start to change or wanting to change that, just know that that person is no longer in their heart center and they just popped up into their head, and that's totally fine. We actually have this little practice in our courses and classes that we have, where my husband, who teaches the majority of them, will have a post-it note that says head and a post-it note that says heart. Now, this isn't just the first level. These are some of the higher level teachings and classes that we have, and so people are actually asking for this and wanting this. So don't put yourself in this situation necessarily, because it wouldn't be done for you because you haven't asked for it, just in case you're thinking about coming to a course or something like that. So in these higher level trainings, he takes these post-it notes, and one says head and one says heart. And when somebody is really, really wanting to build their art of intuition, and they're asking questions or they're sharing, during this particular module, what he will do is he will put the head one up higher if they're in their head, and then start to lower it and put the heart one up higher when they're in their heart. And it can go on for 15 minutes or so. Really, really high in the head. Okay, now you're totally in your heart. Very cool. The whole room can feel the energy shift when the person is in their heart. Not because of his post-it note going up. His post-it note going up is just because that's what's actually happening, but the room can actually feel the difference. And you guys can feel the difference. I don't feel that you would actually be here unless you're people who can feel the difference on some level. So, and that's that's actually really a big sign of an empath, is somebody who's more sensitive to energy, not only your own energy, but the energy that's around you. What feels good, what doesn't feel good. But a lot of times people don't really know what to do with that or how to set boundaries with that. But again, that's for another seminar. I'm super passionate about this, so we'll get back to this. The mind and the heart center are the packages that the worlds of the psychological and spiritual come in. They speak through, and the mind speaks through images, pictures, movies, sounds, thoughts, languages, and visualizations. In the spiritual world, the package of the heart center speaks the language as feelings, and the feelings will come through emotions, intuition, a quiet little voice, or a really loud voice trying to get your attention, but it'll feel different, and then insights. So, what we are going to do now is actually go through the technique that I really want you guys to take home with you and practice. We are going to learn about, and I have this little cheat blue dot. I made it ahead of time, you guys, because to make a perfect circle or a semi-perfect circle just takes a little bit of time. So I'm going to put that here and draw something new out for you guys. What we have here is, when it's in its total completion, it's called the mental snowman. But we're just going to have a couple little different size balls here. So what this top one is the conscious mind. So let's see here. Let's go O-U-S, conscious mind. The conscious mind is where the questions are going to come from that we talked about. It's where all of the things in the world of the psychological are going to be here, the conscious mind. The conscious mind can process 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information per second. And so it could basically be considered like when you open up your computer screen, whatever's on the computer screen. No internet connection, no anything else. It's just when you just first open it up, what's there right now. It's extremely limited, but it's necessary, right? We need it to get into the rest of the stuff. The conscious mind is actually the gatekeeper. So we have the conscious mind, and then below the conscious mind, right here, you will have a very cutely shaped, starting to have a cutely shaped snowman here, the unconscious mind. And my spelling can just be my spelling, fill in the blanks. So the unconscious mind is the storehouse of all of your memories, all of, well, depending how open you are, past lifetimes, in between lifetimes, everything is stored in the unconscious mind. It's like a warehouse of your personal Google information. This is where all of the answers will come from. This is where your intuition, this synchronicities, like, oh, something just kind of fell into place for me. It's because it came from this area, okay? There is one more area that I'm just gonna plant a seed with for you today, and that is right here, and it's so big, it's limitless actually, and so that's why it doesn't really have an end to it here, and this is going to be your higher consciousness. Your higher consciousness, which is not one of the things that we're going to go over today necessarily, but I want to just plant a seed with you to know that your higher consciousness is what created the unconscious mind and the conscious mind. It is limitless. It's what some people will refer to as God, or the divine, the great white buffalo, the knowing. It's higher consciousness is the creation of unconscious mind and the conscious mind for our purposes here today. So, the technique, what I want to walk you through, and this is something that you can do now for yourself as soon as you learn it. You can do for yourself now. You can practice it in your car. You can practice, well actually you're already practicing it in your car. Okay, so this is something that you're already doing, but the technique of it is going to be something you're going to now be consciously aware of, and you'll be able to replicate it when you want to, okay? So what it is what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and acknowledge the conscious mind. We're going to go through a technique, a doorway if you will, which is going to be this blue dot, is going to be a symbol of. And we're going to go in and we're going to access your unconscious mind, where all of your answers are, where all of your knowing is, where all of your intuition is. It's what is wanting to connect with you even more than what you are consciously aware of that you can connect with it. And I know that makes sense on some level. So, the practice of it is going to be this. This blue dot is going to represent something, maybe just in front of you, something on the wall. You can either look at the blue dot itself or just something on the wall. And what I want you to do is, that's right, you guys are on it. Just get really comfortable. Make those adjustments. You're already going there. And this is the really cool thing, you guys, about the unconscious mind, is that when you connect with it, you actually connect and you hook up with everybody else. You hook up with other people. There are moments where people are thinking the same thing at the same time, and you're like, oh my gosh, me too. I just thought that same thing. Or I was just thinking about you, and then they call, right? That's when the unconscious mind is actually connected and hooked up. You can know in those moments that you're in your heart center, okay? That you're connected to that spiritual world. So, go ahead and just get comfortable. And I ask that if you're gonna stay in the room, go ahead and stay in the room. If you're kind of thinking, ew, I was gonna maybe just hop out of here, go ahead and feel free to hop out right now, that's totally fine. We're gonna just go into this relaxing, guided meditation that you're gonna be able to recreate and reproduce for yourself anytime that you want to. Okay. So go ahead and either take a look at this blue dot or some other spot that you've already found on the wall that calls to you. And as you're looking at that spot, go ahead and take a deep breath. deeper than you took previously. And go ahead and continuously then, just for the next 2 minutes or so, allow that breath to just go a little bit deeper than the one previous. Now visually, take a look at that blue dot or that spot on the wall and really focus only on that one spot. While you're doing that, I'd like you to relax your tongue and just relax your shoulders a little bit. Focusing still just on that one spot. And you might gently begin to relax the sides of your eyes and notice a little bit what's just to the right and what's just to the left of that one spot that you're still focusing on. You're going now into peripheral awareness. Very good. And in this space of peripheral awareness, go ahead and expand out and see. Test it out and see if you can see the walls without moving your eyes, without moving that focus. See if you can see maybe the floor in front of you in your peripheral vision, and maybe even the ceiling a little bit. So right now, you're in peripheral awareness, and the breaths are opening up that key, that doorway to your heart center. And we're going to take it one step even further. And I want you to just notice the light humming in the room. As you're still breathing deep, as you're still focused on that spot with your peripheral awareness, it might even feel good to just gently close your eyes, and that's okay too. But now you're bringing in the auditory, the sounds, and letting them gently bring you even deeper into that heart center. In this space, if you're feeling called, go ahead and ask for an answer, for an insight, for that one thing that you would just like to know a little bit more about and what's important to you in your life right now. And allow that unconscious mind to pop that information up to your conscious awareness. It could be a feeling in your body. It could be an insight that comes through where you can see it. It could just be a knowing. And go ahead and just rendezvous a little bit with that, in that space. This information is waiting to come to you. The mind can do whatever it wants to do. It can make a comment. It can not. It can be totally still. But that knowing that comes through is what will help you to take inspired action in life. You can gently give gratitude to that space. And start to come back to your chair a bit more. Or you can stay permanently connected here and bring this energy with you as you go to the rest of the expo, as you go to the rest of your day. Whatever feels best for you on this beautiful Sunday. But you might begin to just wiggle your toes and wiggle your fingers depending on where you're at in this space. Take a deep breath in and release it out. And you can think of this picture with the conscious mind and the unconscious mind in this blue dot, if you will, anytime that you want to in the future. All that you need to do for this, the technical breakdown of it, is this. Find a focal spot, whatever that might be in your life. Relax your shoulders and relax your tongue. Because even though we're not going and digging deep into the physical world, it can't be separated from these two worlds. And relaxing your body is what really helps allow this door to open. What you want to do is go into that peripheral awareness and then notice the different sounds around you and let those sounds actually hum and lullaby you and bring you deeper into your heart center. And when you do that, any place, you are going to get the answers to the questions that you're wanting. You might notice that this actually happens naturally when you're driving. How many of you have been driving at some point, or maybe even on a walk out in nature, and you just get these insights? You get these knowings like, oh, well, that's what I need to do. That was a great walk. That was a great hike. It's because you actually are naturally going into this place of peripheral awareness. So nature is amazing. Yes, absolutely. It has a lot of healing elements. We actually have a shaman on our team who can tell you mind-blowing things about nature and the amazing healing properties of it. So yes, that's amazing. And what you are doing in those places is, on top of the healing elements of nature, on like a hike or a walk, you're going into peripheral awareness. So it's like double compounded, the amount of connection that you're getting. Actually, at that point, so there is another little door here that we're not going to go into today necessarily, but sometime soon, let's go through it together. And that will actually open and access the door to higher consciousness as well. So the information can go up, but it can't go down. The conscious mind wants to ask questions and then go and grab those answers. It's super masculine based, and it wants to do everything. The unconscious mind doesn't communicate like that. The unconscious mind needs the doorway to be open, the heart center to be open, and it pops the information up and gives it to the conscious mind, which is more the feminine side. You need both. They're both super important, but it's not all about doing. It's not all about getting it. Sometimes it's about being and just allowing it to happen. And from my experience, the only way is to allow it to happen. But you need both. They're both super important. So let's go ahead and open up to any questions that you have. I think we might have time for one or two, depending on the length. If you guys have anything, do you have any questions about this, or any shares of any experiences that you had going into peripheral awareness?